Hello, and welcome to Greet the Week. I am Mona Duncan, and today's topic is accountability. And we're going to be looking at accountability. I mean, everything is repeatable again and again and again. I mean, the sun rises every day, whether it's shining or not. And we have 3 meals a day, and we make beds, and we prepare foods, and we go to work, and those schedules just keep happening again and again, with a little variation, but pretty mundane sometimes, and it kind of brings a lot of pressure. So we're going to look at taking accountability for what we do and who we are, and to perform our duties without drudgery. So let me bring up the PowerPoint. I think I got the right one here. On accountability, except I think I have it at the bottom. So we'll move it to the top. And we're looking at accountability, taking the drudgery out of duty. And I want to start off with a little poem. I've written a book entitled Creating Value. And it has 10 chapters in it, and each chapter, I wrote a little poem. It's a continuing poem. It ends, anyway, it starts off on chapter 1 with, one breath began the journey of life, ambiguous with joys and strife. What makes one breaks another. All of Earth's travels are for us to discover the value of self, sister, and brother. So we need to discover who we really are. That was a little poem on chapter 1. And then further on down, which is what we're going to be talking about more today, is a little poem that's on chapter 9. In grasping for our human need, let us humbly examine our deeds. Helping, hurting, blaming, complaining, guilting, stressing, releasing, sustaining. Personal accountability truly frees. When we begin to get real honest with ourselves, and we begin to look at what we are accountable for and the attitude and the demeanor in which we carried out our accountability, we can just really be free. But here's a little thing that's supposedly from Aha Jokes, that how do you handle stress? Well, they gave you a little mark here and says, you know, take your frustration out here. It's a stress reduction kit. Bang your head here. Well, that may help temporarily, but we're talking about long term. And I like Dr. Glasser, William Glasser's definition of what happiness is. He says that happiness has 4 components, and that 3 of them are things we do, and 1 of them is something that we do not do. So happiness is enjoying the life you are choosing to live. And we have to realize and come to terms with the fact that, yeah, everything I do really is by choice. I am choosing the things I do, the places I go, the people I interact with, the job I choose. I'm making all these choices, but I want to enjoy them. Point number 2 to happiness is getting along well with the people near and dear to you. And it also goes hand in hand with recognizing the fact that others are different from us, but we're more alike than we are different. Point number 3 in happiness is doing something with your life you believe is worthwhile. So do something that's enjoyable, something that's gives a learning ability to it, a fun thing, an empowerment that helps to fulfill our needs. And then the 4th qualifier for happiness is not doing anything to deprive another for a chance for happiness. And sometimes that can be real stressing. So we're looking at the fact that our life is a trip. And we go through life with our behavior car, which is our body. And it's a single passenger only. There are some getting close to 8 billion of us on planet Earth already, but we're all just in our single passenger car. And we're in the driver's seat. Every one of us is in our individual driver's seat. You hold the keys to your behavior car at all times. And there are a multitude of other cars on the roadway. And in the meantime, we want to please drive safely. So steer your car of life down good roads. Take care of your body. Keep the four wheels of your total behavior in good working condition. And have frequent tune-ups, realizing that we need. So here's just a little example of our behavior car. That here we are with our four total behavior of the thoughts we think, the actions we take, the feelings we feel, and the physiology, meaning how healthy we are or how headachy or anxious or so forth. And although we are driving through the real world, consisting of real people, real places, real things, in the back of our mind, or maybe in the frontal cortex of somewhere in our brain, we are carrying pictures of an ideal world. And sometimes, even though we want that ideal world, the real world that we live in introduces us to the pleasure-pain syndrome. And so we continually loop the loop again and again and again and again, searching for as much pleasure and success as possible while avoiding as much pain and duty and failure as possible. And sometimes in this pursuit of trying to be all things to all people or extraordinary or this, we become overly accountable, and that pressure becomes discriminatory. That pressure, we become biased, prejudiced, unfair, intolerant. Or another way to say it is the pressure you put on you discriminates against your overall well-being and your productivity. And see, here we are, we're all stressed out, and we have all this burden of responsibilities that's our duty. But as we learn to take care of ourselves, pressure becomes moot point. And my definition of stress is that stress is the result of living outside of our resources, saying yes to too many things, saying no when we really wanted to say yes, and learning how to balance that trade-off so that we can live. So I have 7 thoughts. And one is to watch out for that savior complex or that helper or the rescuer complex. That don't worry about it, I'll take care of it. Because many of our needs that we have that need to be fulfilled is fulfilled through the way we serve others. Whether that is in a work position, whether that is in volunteering, whether that is taking care of the home and the family. Many of our needs are fulfilled through service. The poor you will always have with you. So there are some things that are pretty cyclical. Dust is going to always be there. Deadlines are going to always be there. There are things that we just need to adjust to. And it's looking at giving and taking versus giving and receiving. Sometimes we look how much we're giving. I'm giving. And we say, well, you know, life is about give and take. And we're giving and giving and giving. But we begin to enumerate, boy, look, I'm not receiving very much. And we kind of get it to where we start taking. And it gets into that stress and the drudgery. And looking at driven versus being called. That we're driven because I am so accountable for all of this stuff. Well, as we begin to realize I have gifts and talents, and as I am working on what I'm doing in life in keeping with my natural gifting and talents, how much easier it is to drive through life. Point number 2 is to carry the message, not the person. Have you ever tried to fix someone? And how'd that work for you? Well, why is it that you can't fix anyone else? It's because point 3, Each person is self-determining. We each one have a say-so in our life. But in having a say-so in others' lives, all we can give is information. All we can do is to help, maybe to challenge the other person to think or see things differently. But it's done more by asking for change without demanding change. That accomplishment of being not only self-determining for you, but helping the other person be self-accountable is to ask rather than telling. Whether we are successful or failures, you know, in our self-determination, don't take it personally. Or what other people say to us, take it seriously, but not personally. And then, again, one of Mona's philosophies, if I give you information, which is all I can do in our little talks together, I may or may not have added to your knowledge. But if I say something that helps you to think differently or to see differently, then from my point of view, I've helped to add to your stature, to help you to grow. Well, here's a little cartoon illustration type thing that I put together that sometimes we go, well, this is the life. And we're looking at all the fun stuff, the celebrations, the relaxations, the furs, the money, the travels, and all of that's well and good until we realize that we've really bought into a lie. And right here, I have a little faded out F, that what we are thinking is the life turns out to be a little disappointing until we can relook and re-see, rethink. So in everything we do, we have to remember our humanity. We have to remember that sometimes we need to say no and feel really good about it, rather than being laid down with more guilt and accountability and drudgery, that somebody's going to be mad at me because I said no. But no, realize that that is giving you more freedom. That is remembering your humanity is to work and play, and to realize that working and playing may be similar, but they're usually done in a different spirit. And so if you can begin to have a more light on the obligations, on the duty, on the work, then you can see it in a lighter way, in a more playful way, in a more gentle way. And we've already looked at the fact that we're one of 8 billion people on planet Earth, so there's a lot required of us. But even in the process of all that, we are more alike than we are different. And so not only are we to remember our humanity, but we need to remember their humanity. That the people we are working with, I mean, there's a difference in being told and in understanding. We may give information and we may have thought they understood us, but they may not have. So it's remembering that sometimes we need to just repeat some of those things. I think of Patch Adams, the movie about Patch Adams, who was an intern to become a doctor. And he was following the doctor, he and a bunch of other students were following the doctor, going into patient after patient after patient, and looking at their ailments and giving diagnoses and so forth. And Patch Adams spoke up whenever the doctor said, okay, here we have a cancer patient. And anyway, Patch Adams spoke up and said, Mrs. Smith. And the doctor looked at him like, what? And he said, it's not the cancer victim, it's Mrs. Smith. She's a real person. So as a person that we're frustrated with or have more duties of, remember their humanity also. Give respect to others and earn. We can give them, you know, in that process of giving and receiving, we can choose to give respect, knowing all at the same time that we have to give respect, we have to earn someone else's respect. We can't just demand it. And over here on the side, I have this little here in the Waco area, every year around Thanksgiving and Christmas, as we're, asked to donate toys for tots and food for families time. And sometimes you want to think, what, again? I just helped. But our humanity, remember, is pretty cyclical. It keeps coming around. We need more toys again and again. We need more things again and again. So it is remembering their humanity. And also finding humor in the absurd. To see that everything has a, I should have put bees over here instead of butterflies, but they got bees anyway. But butterflies, that goes with it just as easy. In everything in life, there is a blessing. Sometimes it's hidden and we don't see it till much later. In everything in life, there is beauty. But also, in all of those things in life, there is a burden. Because there's some work involved in everything. There is some duty involved in everything. So, if you're going to laugh about it someday, go ahead and make that day today. Have you ever been really frustrated and barked at someone, or someone has barked at you, and then it's been, back and forth? And maybe you were really hurt over something, but after you begin to see the humanity of self and others, you begin to laugh about it, and someday it just became a real big hee-haw. Well, let's just collapse that time, as physicist David Bohm talks about. That let's just collapse that time, and if you're going to laugh about it someday, do it today. And we can do that a whole lot by looking at the Dr. Glasser's ultimate question: is what I'm doing, is it drawing us closer together, pushing us further apart? And realize that I am making drudgery whenever I am performing any task in those 7 disconnecting habits. Whereas I can have more fun and more enjoyment when I am performing anything with the attitude of the 7 caring habits. And point number 7 is realizing that you will not live forever. And so let's pass it on. Let's begin to kind of eliminate some of the things we're holding on to now, so that, and let's be promotable. Let someone learn about our job, and let someone learn about our gifts and talents, so that we can leave a legacy. A quote from Cletty Key: let your vision grow larger than you, or it will die with you. A quote from him, actually, it was some of his advice to me. Let your vision grow larger than you are, and let it be sustainable enough that it will live on whether you're here or not. So here is a little poem from the ending poem in Creating Value from chapter 10. Continuing on life's odyssey, finding at last the secret key. Being, doing, having, giving, components of a life worth living, passing on a legacy. So, was our little talk helpful? What have you gained from our time together? And what is your takeaway? Thank you for being here, and I wish you many blessings.